I'm happy to have found this train station. Finally, I can get back on track to where I was trying to go. Let's see here. Alright, let's get on this train. So, back on a train. I really don't know how I feel about this since the last one went so terribly, but hopefully this one goes just fine. Well, I might as well give y'all an intro to this set while we're here on the train waiting. Hello all, welcome to Expedition. This set released September 15th in 2002, so it looks like we're already taking on a new year here. So congrats to Pokemon for holding it down for 3 years already in English, with so many awesome sets that were able to be talked about. This set is the introduction to the E-Series type of cards, which were cards with the intention of being able to be scanned into the actual Pokemon games with a device called the E-Reader. As such, these cards feature these really awesome yellow borders with a large part of the left slot being taken up by lines and the E-Series logo in the bottom left, making cards from this era instantly recognizable. This set was also the first to widely use the reverse holo effect, which let almost all cards in the set being able to be used as reverse holo cards, where the holographic part of the card covers the whole card instead of just inside the little box. This set is also extremely hard to find, much like these other sets, but we're moving into sets that are also super duper hard to find.
You've arrived at your destination.
Ah, wonderful. Now we can go out of this train. Brr, it's freezing here. Oh my, I can't wear clothes like this. Hold on. Uh, I got something in my backpack here. I think I've got like a vest or something. Um, okay, yeah, this is it. Okay, perfect, perfect. We'll wear this instead, so I'm not freezing on this trip. Oh, the frozen tundra. What a sight to behold. While I'm starting my trek through the tundra to get to the underwater city, let's talk about some of the artists in Expedition. First, we'll start off with Milky Isobe, who worked on two cards for Expedition, being reprints of the Metal Energy and Darkness Energy. These cards are the same as they were in Neo Genesis, but the Metal Energy is no longer a holographic card. For reprints, I want to cover them a little shorter, because this video will be long enough on its own. But these energies are a staple, so good job on Isobe. Moving on to a new artist, Kai Ishikawa, who worked on the Energy Search Trainer card. Just being this one card, which is cool, I suppose. It looks like a fire energy is floating in front of a bunch of gray tanks. We'll see this card more as the sets go onwards, but this card is fine, and it shows how an energy search would probably look. Next, we move on to Hideyuki Nakajima, who worked on the Energy Restore for Expedition, which is just a straight reprint from the one from Versus. The card shows energies floating above some water, and we will see this card more as the sets go on. And now, we'll move on to Big Mama Tagawa, who worked on three cards for Expedition, being the Dual Ball, which appears to be two Pokeballs flying in different directions, with a pink, blue, and yellow background, the Multi-Technical Machine, which is reminiscent of the TMs from Versus, but the card is a rainbow box with a little antenna hanging off of it, and then there's the Pokemon Reversal, which is yet another reprint from Versus, showing the Weepinbell and Geodude, with Blastoise and Electabuzz in the background. Tagawa's style is something that I've never been able to actually pin down, but the way they do trainers can either be super interesting and fleshed out or just boxes with colors like the TM cards. Overall, these trainers serve their purpose quite well. Our next artist is one who received a whopping 15 cards in the set, being Keiji Kinabuchi. It's nice to see their name again, and it's nice to see them working on 15 cards for this enormous set. Kinabuchi worked on the 6 default energies that he worked on for the other sets, but this time, their borders have that same E-Series effect that the other cards in the set do, which is something of note for sure. Kinabuchi worked on the energy removal too, which shows energies floating around a swirling vortex with purple energy flowing towards the camera. The Master Ball is a straight reprint of the one from Gym Challenge. The Power Charge is almost a straight reprint of the Energy Charge, but the effect of the card is different, which is of note. The artwork is the same on this one though. The Strength Charm is a new card for Kinabuchi, which shows the crystallized charm laying down on the rocky ground, with the full charm being able to be seen in the card, which is neat. I like the simplicity in this card. The Super Scoop Up is a straight reprint from Neo Genesis, and the Warp Point is a reprint from Gym Challenge. The Potion is a reprint from Base, but this one has a different artwork, featuring a different potion, and the Switch is a reprint from Base with a different artwork, showcasing Porygon 2 in this card. And then there's the Full Heal, which is also a reprint from Base, with a different artwork, showcasing the new Full Heal with a heartbeat in the background, which is a neat touch. Overall, Kinabuchi's cards in Expedition are simple reprints for the most part, but I like the Porygon 2 and the Switch card, if you couldn't tell by me pointing it out when I was speaking about the card itself. Our next artist is Ken Sugimori, who returns to create just some trainers for Expedition, which is actually a nice change of pace, as these trainer cards are quite awesome. Sugimori worked on 6 cards for Expedition. The Bill's Maintenance, which shows Bill working on some machinery with a screwdriver, the Copycat, which showcases a girl dressing up like other prominent figures such as Team Rocket or Pikachu, the Mary's Impulse, which shows Mary and someone else being excited about something, while the people in the background are freaking out, the Pokemon Nurse, which shows a super cute Wooper looking back curiously at its damaged tail that's wrapped in bandages, with a nurse overlooking the Wooper's wound. The Professor Elm's training method, which shows Professor Elm being bitten by Totodile as Chikorita and Cyndaquil watch Elm be attacked, and the Professor Oak's research, which shows Oak being surrounded by many books as he, researches something. I think my favorite out of the lot is probably the Pokemon Nurse. It's just really cute, and I like that aspect of cards. Overall, Sugimori's trainer cards are actually quite amazing. They showcase how the people and the Pokemon would interact with their environment very effectively. Now that we've covered all the trainers, I think I'm going to have to enter this icy cave, as it doesn't look like I can get much further without exploring it. So let me have a look. In the meantime, we can talk about Ayami Tomita, a new artist in Expedition who worked on one of the Totodile cards, being 135. This one is super cute. It looks like it's resting on a wave, or resting on a boat, as bubbles flow in the background. Very nice for a new artist. Alright, looks like I'm in the ice cave now. It's pretty dark. Hold on. Let me light a torch really quickly, and then we'll delve deeper into this cave. Okay, looks like we can see better in this cave, and as we explore, we'll talk about some of the other artists in the set. Hironobu Yoshida is not a new name at all, but it's one that we've heard many times in the past. But they were able to work on one card for Expedition, being the Meowth, which is pretty cute, as its shadow can be seen cast on the wall in the background. It looks angrily back at the right side of the camera, and a coin can be seen being thrown into the foreground. Happy to see Hironobu working on a card for this set, even if it is just one. Satoshi Ota returns from Versus to deliver one card to us, being the Meryl, which is pretty darn cute. I like how it's smiling as it sits on a rock next to a stream, and there's also a branch in the foreground. It's just nice to see a landscape for Meryl to be chilling in, so I quite like it a bit. And for Ota's third card, it's a nice common card in Expedition. Our next artist is Toshino Aoki, who worked on 2 cards for Expedition, being the Hoppip, which flies in a field with those cool speed effects flying from behind it, and then the Quillfish looks derpily as it hangs out in some nice teal water as bubbles fly around it. It's nice to see Aoki's simple style continue in Expedition, so happy to see them back. Motofumi Fujiwara has returned from Versus to illustrate one card in Expedition, being one of the Chikorita cards, number 100, which is a cute rendition of the Pokemon. I like how its legs are all sprawled out as it looks towards the camera, and the grass around it is very nice and visible, with a nice blue sky. I like the simplistic shading too. It makes Chikorita pretty shiny. Fujiwara's third card is quite nice, so that's good that I have nothing bad to say about it. Our next artist only has 2 cards in this set, is a new artist, and these are the only cards they've ever illustrated for the TCG, being Sachi Matoba, who illustrated the Bulbasaur number 94, which is one of the best renditions of Bulbasaur I think we've ever seen before, with it laying down, smiling on the floor as flowers blossom around it. And the other card that Matoba illustrated was a Cyndaquil number 104 for this set, which I actually do personally own. Its colors are really beautiful. I like the simplistic flames on Cyndaquil, but the detailed, almost painting-like background of the card. It's really awesome. Too bad Matoba will not return for any other sets in the future. Cool cards for a cool set, though. Another artist returning from Versus is Asuka Iwashita, who illustrated the Quilava for Expedition, which is a really interesting rendition of this Pokemon, as it blows up a rock with the flames in its butt, and you can see rocks flying everywhere, as Quilava lays down on the floor. I like how dynamic it is, and Iwashita's cards continue to be interesting, so I hope to see more of them. And again, yet another artist who had their time to shine in Expedition and didn't receive any more cards after this, being Yuichi Sawayama, who illustrated 4 cards for Expedition, being the Gloom, which can be seen drooling an enormous bubble, as a cool viney background can be seen behind it, with a green to pink gradient splash in the back. Then the Metapod looks like the shell of a Metapod, with lines connecting the different blocks of the Metapod, which is one of the most interesting cards I've ever seen before. Then there's the Charmander number 98, which lights the area around it on fire, with smoke coming up from the sides, and the moon can be seen in the background. Then the Tauros shoots fire off of its mouth and rushes towards the camera, and red and blue can be seen in the background colors that link the Tauros to the front of the card. For first cards and final cards, Sawayama created some of the most interesting common and uncommon cards for the whole set, so that's absolutely something to be taking note of. Another new artist was introduced in Expedition, being Hiroaki Ito, who worked on two cards for the set, being the Electabuzz, which holds an electrical wire in its hands as it's surrounded by blue electricity, as the background shows other wires and pipes and smoke. Then, one of the strangest cards I think I've seen ever, being the Typhlosion number 64, which shows Typhlosion straight on as it looks towards the camera, which is one of the most interesting viewings of a Pokemon that I think I've ever seen in my entire life, but you can see the flames around it and the lines of reddish yellow as the background of white. Ito made a strong impression in Expedition, and we won't see them for a while, so wait to see what they're cooking in the future. I think I made it out of that cave finally. I swear, when you're talking, time can fly by so fast. So this is it then, the Mountain of Hollow. That's pretty convenient actually, as we're going to be looking at all of the artists who have holographic cards in the set. So thank you, Mountain. Anyways, we're going to be scaling this mountain while we talk. So let's start with Shinichi Yoshikawa, who worked on two cards for Expedition, being the Venusaur Hollow, which can be seen walking through a forest and prancing along. I need to find a Venusaur card that actually tries to make it look cute. And then there's the non-hollow version of the Hollow Venusaur. These two cards are 3D generated, and you can totally tell. But the artist who did these cards also worked on the Dark Crobat from Neo Destiny a while ago, which is definitely neat, I guess. I mean, I think I prefer the Dark Crobat because this Venusaur is kind of scary. Our next artist will be Kei Hoshiba, who worked on the Typhlosion holographic card for Expedition, as well as the non-holo version. This is a pretty cool looking Typhlosion, whose 3D generation doesn't take away from it at all. I actually think it looks quite cool. I like the pose and the cool background, and I feel like Hoshiba is really getting the hang of these cards at this point, so I'm excited to see more of them. Our next artist is Hiromichi Sugiyama, who worked on four cards for Expedition, and all of them were starters. The Charizard non-holo and holo, which can be shown flying through the air with a nice blue and green background, with white lines going everywhere. The Blastoise non-holo, which shoots water out of its cannons as debris flies up around it. And the Feraligatr, which has its mouth wide open with little bubble effects that can also be seen around it. To be honest, these cards, other than the Charizard, are kinda scary. There's just something off about them that I can't describe quite. Our next artist is Sumiyoshi Kizuki, who worked on six cards for Expedition, being the Butterfree non-holo and holo, which can be seen flying out of a window as the sun sets in the background. And there are also two Butterfrees. The Chansey, which can be seen healing an Aipom holding an egg. The Jinx, which has a snowflake around its face as it looks straight on at the camera. The Mareep, which bounds forward as there's a textured yellow background. The Shelder, which can be seen peeking through some kelp. These cards are quite well done, and the more cards that Kizuki does, the more I have to say about their cards. Like, for a card like the Butterfree, the background is so detailed and it's just very lively, with those distinctive no outlines. And a card like the Shelder has some pretty thick outlines, and the vibe of the card is really awesome. Overall, Kizuki's cards are always something fun to look at, because of the varying styles of their cards. Next is Yuka Mori, who illustrated 7 cards for Expedition, and they illustrated the full Poliwag line for this set. The Poliwrath has one of its arms raised, with some rocks in the background, and it looks very upset. The Poliwhirl is pretty goofy, as it blankly looks forward, and the background is very similar to the Poliwrath. Same thing for the Poliwag, which looks up and to the left, standing cutely. The Rattata bounds forward as it bares its fangs, and sand sits in the background. And then the Squirtle, number 131, is cute as it sits on the beach as it looks up, as rocks surround it. Finally, Mori worked on the Vulpix for this set, which looks over and to the right with the grassy floor and trees in the background. These clay cards that Mori makes are always awesome, and it's still one of the most unique ways that art has been created for the TCG. Miki Tanaka returns again for more cards in Expedition, 7 of them to be exact. The Vileplume non-holo and holo is very cute. I'm a fan of the pathway that the Vileplume is walking along, and it works pretty well as a holo. Then the Ivysaur looks to be shooting some kind of grass out of itself, as it looks to the right, upset. The Magmar shoots fire out of its mouth and sets everything around it ablaze. The Caterpie looks very cute as it stares forward and stands on a tree. The Chikorita number 99 looks back and to the left as it smiles and rain pours down. And finally, the Corsola sleeps as it lays flat in the water, which I just find kinda cute. Overall, Tanaka's cards are nice and simplistic, and I enjoy them in this set quite a bit. Shinichi Yoshida has returned to illustrate 7 cards for Expedition, and these cards have a very rugged shading style. The Kingler looks to be inside of a cave, as it looks forward and one of its claws covers pretty much the whole card, and the Machamp has its arms extended while it smiles, looking very upset. The same can of course be said about the non-hollow versions of the cards, but the Machoke has its arm extended with a determined look on its face, and its other arms drift off to the side. The Krabby looks pretty cute, even though it has that super realistic shading style. And finally, the Machop looks forward, as it smiles. These cards by Yoshida are all quite nice, and I like the shading style that Yoshida has adapted over these sets. It makes their cards stand out amongst others, and the Pokemon that they were able to do are all cool renditions of cool Pokemon. Our next artist is one who seems to be creeping their way into set after set, which is a good thing, as I'm always happy to review their cards, and that artist is Yukiko Baba, who illustrated 6 cards for Expedition, being the Gengar Hollow and Non-Hollow, which shows Gengar looking straight forward as it smiles, and its ears are very notable, as it makes it kinda look like a cat in this card. The Haunter has its arms widespread out as swirls can be seen in the background. Then, the Pupitar looks straight forward as hexagons can be seen in the background, with a green, black, and blue line that's behind everything. And then the Ghastly can be seen in an alleyway, as little blue puffy smoke clouds come off of it. Finally, there's the Larvitar, which sits inside of a cave that we have an X-ray view of into. These cards by Baba are very cool. I like how simplistic but detailed the cards are. Like the cards are simplistic, but they always feel like they have a purpose. After Baba, our next artist is Masako Yamashita, who's really made a name for themselves in this era of Pokemon cards, and they've done 6 cards for Expedition, being the Dugtrio Hollow and Non-Hollow, which can be seen breaking through the ground as it looks upset and determined, the Charmander number 97, which can be seen looking back as it stands near some sort of random orangey rocks, and the Nadiglet can be seen looking up with some grass around it, which kinda reminds me of the Diglett from base set. The Goldeen can be seen looking up as its tail swings in the current of water, and the Oddish looks super upset, which is pretty funny for an unthreatening Pokemon like Oddish. Overall, these cards by Yamashita are cute, and they convey a message in all of them, like the Dugtrio being upset or Diglett being curious. Ayakusube has done one evolution line in Expedition, being the Geodude line, starting off with the Golem, which can only sort of be seen in the frame, as it looks forward upset. That distinctive Kusube shading style really handing itself well to a Pokemon like Golem, with those colors. And there's a hollow and non-hollow version of this card. The Graveler looks forward as well, with a deep blood red sky that can be seen, and the Graveler smiles almost deviously. Finally, there's the Geodude, who looks at a flower, as one of its arms is resting on its head, which, I guess that's its head, and the other arm is around a rock. These cards are awesome, and they have a place in this set, as Kusube is a legendary artist who always puts their all into the cards that they do. Next, we'll talk about Kimi and Masago, who worked on 8 cards in Expedition. Let's start with the Blastoise Hollow and Non-Hollow. This card is really cool. I like how you can see Blastoise swimming through the water, as its cannons are above the water, and it looks cool as either a hollow or a non-hollow card. The Mewtwo is one of the coolest cards in the entire set, as the Mewtwo can be seen with its arms extended and fingers pointing down, as its tail bends around its body. In the non-hollow version of the card, you can really tell that the lightning in the background is actually there. In the Tyranitar, it kinda looks like Godzilla, with the water and the rocks surrounding it, as its mouth lays open. And finally, the Skarmory Hollow and Non-Hollow are beautiful renditions of a cool Pokemon. I like that the sky that's visible in the non-hollow version in this card, as it's deep and the colors are vivid. Masago never fails to amaze me when it comes to their realistic but awesome style. An artist whose praises I sung in verses, Atsuko Nishida, has made some awesome cards for Expedition, with 13 cards to talk about. Let's just get started with the Ampharos Hollow and Non-Hollow. This card is absolutely adorable. I love Ampharos's beady eyes as it looks up, and its big old body. The Ninetales Hollow and Non-Hollow is gorgeous too. I like how regal and elegant it looks in this card, with the bamboo surrounding it. The Pichu is super cute. Really interesting to put Pichu in as a hollow, but it's smiling and jumping up, and the flowers surround it all over the place. Same can be said with the Raichu, as it jumps up, but this time stars surround it. And in the non-hollow version, you can see a swirling blue vortex. Next, we'll talk about the Charizard number 39, which is awesome. It's cool to see Charizard, a typically very cool Pokemon, looking actually kinda cute. It's just the light shading that Nishida uses for their cards at this time, which makes these Pokemon look amazing. And now I can sing my praises for Venusaur, because this one is actually cute. Venusaur number 67 is cute and cool, as its vines swing from side to side. The Hitmonlee looks cool too, as it's in a battle-ready stance with its hands spread way out. The Wartortle looks to the left, very determined, as it flows through the water, and its tail is super bushy. Then finally, the Pikachu, which is just plain adorable. The sky that is above it, as well as the little smile on its face, make it one of my favorite Pikachu cards so far. By far. Nishida's artwork is a masterclass. I love the shading that they use for their cards in this era, and I'm excited to see more from them. Our next artist is Kagemaru Himeno, who worked on 11 cards for Expedition, so we'll start with the Clefable Hollow, which shows the moon in the background as it looks forward. Very fitting for a mon like Clefable. And the bottom of the card has a city with lights on, and the Dragonite Hollow tries to stomp the camera as it flies, most likely in an action shot. And then, the Rapidash Hollow looks back at the camera as fire flies from the tail wildly. The Meganium number 53 is super cute. I like the trees around the Pokemon, as well as the way its face looks. The Croconaw looks to be trying to drink some water from a river. The Dragonair looks very elegant as it spins around. The Dratini is cute as it looks up, and the Ponyta looks back as giant craggy cliffs are behind it. These cards by Himeno are all very cute, and it's cool to see them illustrate a full Dragonite line and a full Ponyta line here. Are we almost at the top of this mountain yet? I feel like I've been climbing this for a while. Ah, um, looks like we're almost there, thankfully. Let's just get back to these artists. Our next artist is Kyoko Umemoto, who worked on 10 cards for Expedition. The first one we'll talk about is the Arbok, whose mouth is wide open as it looks towards the camera. Its teeth are all visible, which is pretty spooky. The Cloyster looks up and to the left, and I kinda prefer the non-holo version of this card, as the background is polygonal and cool, with wavy lines on top and bottom. The Fearow is cool, I like how pointy it looks, but again, I prefer the non-holo version, with the cool clouds and the striking lines. The Cyndaquil number 105 is cool. I like how it's jumping around, with a ring of fire behind it. The colors are just nice, and the Ekans I can say the same for. The colors in this one are just awesome, and the way the Ekans is posed up is super awesome. I love the colors on this one. The Spearow has some nice colors, and the leaves around it are a nice touch as it looks up. And then finally, the Squirtle number 132 is really nice. I like how it's looking up kinda sad, with its eyes looking cute. I like the water background with the transparent water. And I like how all of Umemoto's cards have a very distinct style to them. I like the vivid colors that they use along with the interesting and striking backgrounds with their simplistic Pokemon or just interesting to look at Pokemon. Ah, we're finally at the top of the hill. The view from up here is awesome. I think I can see the entrance to the Water City from here, so I might as well finish our video up here on top of the mountain. Hajime Kusajima is a returning artist from Versus who illustrated 11 cards for Expedition, and first we'll talk about the Alakazam Hollow. This card is gorgeous, probably one of the best renditions of this Pokemon that we've ever received. I don't know how to explain it, but Kusajima gives these Pokemon some kind of life that I don't feel from some of the other artists, which is just amazing. And while we're at it, we'll talk about the Abra and the Kadabra. The Abra is really awesome, projecting an after image on it, as there are more Abras on the left and the right, and the Kadabra wields its famous spoon as it pushes psychic energy forward. And then there's the Meganium Hollow, which is super cute. I really love how in the non-hollow version you can see flower petals below it. The Weezing is actually kind of scary. This card looks very interesting, but the hollow part is on the gas of the non-hollow version, which is interesting to note. And then there's also the Mew, which is beautiful. I really love how this is the first Mew card in a main set, so this is a good one to start with. I love how the non-hollow has really nice colors and flowers in the background. Then, finally, there's the Koffing, which is scary, but the gas is a neat touch. But honestly, it is just scary. Kusujima is a really talented artist who I'm excited to see more of in the future. Next, we'll talk about Tomokazu Kamiya, who worked on 10 cards for Expedition. The Pidgeot Hollow is very visually pleasing. I like how distinct the Pidgeot is, with it diving down to the ground. And the Charmeleon is really cool as well, as it swipes with its claw. The Pidgeotto flies upwards with some pillars on the ground, and the Bulbasaur looks towards the sky, with trees surrounding it. The Clefairy looks up as it smiles, and stands in a grass field, which is super cute. And then the Cubone lies on the ground and sleeping as it cries, with a little flower next to it, and it looks like it's sitting on a cliff. And I also like the colors in it. I like the Magikarp as well. One of them is bounding upwards, with a bunch of other ones surrounding it looking concerned. And then there's the Pidgey, which walks along in the grass, looking also very concerned. Then there's also a reprint of the Moo Moo Milk from Neogenesis. Kamiya's artworks are always so interesting to look at, and I'm happy that they worked on Expedition. Our final artist that we're looking at is Mitsuhiro Rita, who worked on 8 cards for Expedition. So we'll just start with Feraligatr, which swims through the water. in a similar way to the Blastoise, but this one is cool because of the swamp in the background that is visible in the non-holo version. And then there's the Magpie Hollow, which looks forward as smoke comes up from the background, which is really cute. Then the Bayleaf stands on top of some lily pads, with the hole in its leaf letting the sun come through it, which is very awesome. The Flaffy lights up a Christmas tree with the electricity from its tail, which I find really cute. I like how it looks back at the tree with wonder. The Houndour stands straight down as it looks upset at the camera, and the desert can be seen in the background, which I really like. Then, finally, the Totodile chomps as it tries to eat or kill an Oddish, which is super awesome. Not because the Oddish might die, but it just gives Totodile a lot of character and personality, which is a good thing. It's also in a flower field, which I find super cute. I like all of these cards by Arita, and I just really appreciate that style that he does with the shading and everything else that he does with his cards. And, wow, Expedition was a really large set, but it didn't feel like it took that long to cover. When it comes to my favorite cards from the whole set, I really enjoy the Bulbasaur number 94, Pokemon Nurse, Butterfree, Holo and non-holo for that one, Graveler, Alakazam, Holo and non-holo, Charizard number 39, Feraligatr Holo and non-holo, and then the Mewtwo Holo and non-holo, as well as the Ekans. I kind of changed up how my setup for these videos worked, so this video didn't take as long to create as the last one. And this set was bigger than the last one. In our next video, I'm going to climb down this mountain. And also, we'll be covering Aquapolis. Thanks for watching. Bye now.